Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plots, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. It's great to bite into a homegrown apple. Today we're going to talk about the varieties that work best in different areas of the country. Also, planting bulbs in the fall will give you beautiful flowers in the spring. That's just ahead on the Family Plots, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plots. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Mr. D.
Howdy.
And Leith Salmons will be joining me later. All right, Mr. D. You know all about those apple tree varieties, don't you?
I do not know. Nobody knows all
Nobody
about
knows
those
all of
apple
them?
tree varieties. There's a lot of them out there. I know that. Simple fact, there's 7,000 apple varieties out there, or over 7,000. There's lots of apple varieties. There are new ones being created every day. They're crossing them, and there are a lot of choices. And when you make a decision about, what varieties you want, I would encourage you to contact your local extension office, or talk with, if you have any successful apple growers around you, talk with them, because I would encourage you to try to find one that's got some disease resistance. You'll be happier if you can find one that's resistant to cedar apple rust. You'll be happier if you find a variety that has some resistance to fire blight and some of the other diseases out there, and that'll make your life a lot easier. No matter what varieties you get, you're going to need to follow a spray schedule, home orchard spray schedule.
Sure. And I'm sure you can get with the extension,
the local
agent.
extension office, and get whatever is recommended
Spray
for your
guide.
area. I'm going to tell you what it's probably going to be. I'll tell you what it is for here in Tennessee. It's basically, just at bud swell, an oil with Captan, the fungicide. Captan is the fungicide that's going to be mentioned. It's what we recommend in Tennessee. Now, maybe some of the newer varieties or newer fungicides out there have labels for apples, but in our home orchard spray guide, it's still Captan.
Still Captan.
And if you have a history of fire blight, during bloom, early, mid, late bloom, probably 3 applications of streptomycin or Agristrep 17 or something. That's to combat the fire blight. After bloom, start with your cover spray. 7 to 10 days after that last bloom spray with Captan plus malathion. And so do not use an insecticide during bloom. You don't want to take out your honeybees. But then every 2 weeks, if your spray doesn't get washed off, go with that Captan plus malathion, and that's pretty simple. You can mix it yourself, or you can find it in home orchard spray, a commercial spray. Be careful, do not use a home orchard spray that has carbaryl in it.
Right.
Because carbaryl can cause apples to thin, and sometimes they'll thin them all. Apples are a little different from peaches. They need a certain amount of cool weather. They need a certain number of chill hours. And let's talk a little bit about that.
Let's do.
Down in the Gulf Coast area where I spent my time, 450 chill hours was about the number of hours. And chill hours, a simple way of putting it, is pretty much the number of hours below 45 degrees minus the number of hours above 60 degrees that you have in the wintertime. And so you have a lot of above 60-degree weather down in the southern extreme south, and so that's why you get down to like 450 chill hours. I've got a chill hours map that I pulled up from the Penn State.
That's a nice map.
Which is pretty well, you can see in the Orlando area, it's got 0 chill hours, and you get up to up northern part of the Panhandle, South Georgia, South Mississippi has only, 200 to 400 hours, and then it goes on up, and you get up into the Great Lakes area, 1,400 chill hours.
1,400.
And with peaches, each variety will tell you the chill hours required for that variety of peaches. With apples, you don't see that so much.
Okay.
Some of them do have the chill hours. Most of them will simply say they will grow in the USDA zone 6, 5,
Right.
8, or whatever. And so you need to be familiar with USDA zones, growing zones, and then just select your apples based upon that.
So what happens if you try to grow an apple in the wrong chilling zone?
There are several things that could happen. The worst thing that could happen is it could die. If it doesn't get enough chill hours, the apple tree just won't survive. If it's too low chill hours, it will bud out early and it'll freeze. The freeze will kill it. If requires too many chilling hours, it will never fruit. It will never. You got to have those hours have to be met before it will fruit, and so it just won't do well.
Right.
At the best, it won't do well. At the worst scenario, it will die.
It will die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's important to make sure that
It's
we're growing
important
it
to
in
make
the
sure
right
that-
chilling requirement zone.
And that's pretty much true of anything you plant in your landscape. You want something that is adapted to that climate.
I would agree.
And you may have a plant that will grow for a few years, and we talk about them every once in a while. One thing in this area that I see a lot is some of the white pines are beautiful trees that are planted, but they're off-site, and they may grow several years. They may grow 15 years, and then they die. And same thing could happen with an apple tree that's off-site.
Makes sense to me.
It could, if it's close, especially if some years it gets what it needs and some years it doesn't, it may hang on for a while. You may actually get a crop every once in a while, but then it's just not going to do well. It's not going to be dependable.
Let's talk a little bit about the state extension zones.
Yeah, the states, when they recommend varieties, actually vegetables and everything else, they will
Flowers.
many times break down the state of Tennessee is usually West, Middle, and East Tennessee varieties and things that'll do well. And sometimes that's based more on temperature, more on the elevation than it is temperature. But I know down in Alabama, when I was down there, it was North, Middle, Central, and Southern Alabama were basically 3 zones. Georgia, they break their state up into like 5 zones, and it's important that you talk with your extension service, your local extension service, to determine, how you're set up. If you're going to use the state zone designations on the varieties that you plant.
Okay.
But I looked at Georgia, I looked at Oregon and Iowa, and there were a few varieties that just kind of showed up everywhere.
Okay.
And I'm going to mention those. And but some of these do not have some of the resistance that I mentioned before. For example, Golden Delicious will grow pretty much from Oregon to central Alabama, central Georgia, and the Delicious apples, Golden and Red Delicious, in high altitude areas, they'll have those prominent lobes on the end of the apple, but when you get into lower elevation areas, they're just as round as a pumpkin. They're very round. They lose those lobes.
Right.
Now that's basically dependent upon the elevation that they're grown in. But Golden Delicious is a really good pollinator. It grows in a lot of places, but it is highly susceptible to cedar apple rust, and it has some susceptibility to fire blight also. You're going to want to spray, but these varieties, I mentioned Golden Delicious, Red Delicious is also on that list, Jana Gold, Gala, Fuji, and Granny Smith. Those varieties grow pretty much all over the country.
Right. And those are familiar
varieties.
varieties.
And you'll see these in the grocery store.
very familiar.
When you go in the grocery store, just about anywhere, you'll see those varieties. And I spent 12 years down on the Gulf Coast.
Okay.
And there, a lot of the apple varieties that do well in most of the country don't do well in extreme southern areas, kind of some of the tropical or subtropical areas. And when I started, I pulled up a Florida publication, and brought back some old memories, some of the varieties, because the varieties of apples that do well in South Florida and South Alabama, down on the Gulf Coast,
Right.
and I say South Florida, even the Panhandle of Florida, and southern part of Texas, and places like Southern California even, would be Ein Shamir, Elah, Mayan, Michael, and I don't know whether I'm pronouncing these right or not, Shlomit. They're all Israeli. They're from the Israel varieties, and they do well in the extreme south. In the northern part of Florida, the Panhandle of Florida, and southern Georgia, and southern Alabama, and southern Mississippi, places like that, Anna, Dorset Golden, and Tropic Sweet would probably work for you. Now, all of these varieties that I just mentioned, don't try to grow them up north.
Right.
Don't try to grow them
Don't do that.
much further north in the areas that I mentioned. Let me talk about some of I talked about pretty in-depth about some of the varieties that grow in the extreme south. Let me go back a little bit further north. I want to talk
let's do that.
about the Northwest a little bit, some of the varieties that are in addition to the varieties that I said would grow pretty much everywhere. And then we'll come down into like the central, the heartland, Iowa. We'll look at some of the varieties that grow there.
Good.
Okay?
Okay. Sounds good.
But in looking at Oregon, let's go up in the Northwest. In addition to the apples that I mentioned, the Granny Smith, Fuji, Golden Delicious, Red Delicious, Johnny Golden Gala, Lodi, Early Gold, Akane, Gravenstein, L-Star, Empire, and Newton, and Brayburn are varieties that will work up there in those higher elevation, colder climates.
Right.
Looking at Iowa, a lot of varieties will work in Iowa, and I noticed some of these look very familiar to me, and I'm not gonna read all of these.
They have a lot there.
I got a lot of them, but State Fair, I've heard of that variety. Macintosh is an old variety. My uncle used to grow those in an orchard. That's been New Bern, Tennessee. Cortland, Freedom, Honey Gold, Jonna Free, and Jonathan. I'm sure Jonna Free is an offspring of Jonathan.
Right.
John Alicious also. Spartan, Empire, Honey Crisp.
Honey Crisp, yeah.
That's a very, very good apple, a very tasty apple. Jonna Gold. But those, Matsu, those are varieties that will work in Iowa. So you can grow apples in most of the country, and they are a lot less trouble to grow than peaches.
Yeah, definitely that.
They're more trouble to grow than blueberries.
Okay.
But
less, than the peaches. And we'll have that information, of course, on our website. We definitely want people to go there and, see where they are and see what they can grow for sure. So we thank you for that good information, Mr. Diaz.
Okay.
Pretty in depth in growing apples, right?
Lots of choices.
Lots of choices. Thank you much.
From time to time, I'm asked to go out and look at possible injury from herbicides. And when you have sycamore trees and the potential damage is from dicamba, then it's pretty easy to tell whether or not the sycamores got a whiff of dicamba. This one got a light whiff. When you see the cupping of the leaves like this, that is a good sign that this tree got a little whiff of dicamba. Another indicator is when you look at the turf grass and you see there are absolutely no broadleaf weeds out there. Now, the good news is it's not going to hurt this tree. I mean, the damage shows it's an indicator that the product was used and it got a whiff of it, but this tree will be fine. It'll come back, it'll leave out next year, and it'll be fine.
All right, Mr. Lee.
Hi, Chris. This is fall season, time we want to be thinking about planting our spring bulbs.
Okay, so what do we need to do to prepare our beds for those bulbs?
If you've got a bed, you want to loosen up, till it some, so that it'd be easier to plant the bulbs. There are several different ways that you can plant the bulbs with several different tools.
Okay.
All of them work better if the ground has been tilled or loosened.
Okay.
Right?
Now, what are some of the tools that we need to use?
Today we have several different tools that you can use. We have a hand trowel
All right,
if the soil is loose that you can pry out the soil and do it. A lot of stores sell this type of bulb
Yeah.
planter that was old-fashioned from standpoint.
Okay.
It's very hard to dig a hole if you don't have really
Right.
loose soil. So if you have 3 or 4 bulbs, that might be fine. If you're planting 100 to 200 bulbs, that's pretty hard work.
It's going to be hard. All right.
Hard work.
Okay.
Other tool we have today is one that has a drill that goes onto your regular portable drill that you can use in the yard.
Okay.
And that's very easy to drill a hole in loose soil.
Okay, I've actually used that before. so that's
Everybody
pretty good.
uses this.
Okay. All right. Now, what kind of bulbs will you be planting for us today?
We're going to be planting some tulip bulbs today, and we also have some narcissus that we can, daffodils that we can plant
Okay.
today.
Okay. Now, when is the best time to plant
Best
those?
time to plant is in late November and 1st of December.
Okay.
You want the soil temperature to draw down to about 50 degrees.
Okay.
And usually that's when the leaves have already turned
Yeah.
and then we're starting fall and past peak color season.
All right. So you want to demonstrate to
All
us
right,
how you
I'll show you.
put the bulbs in the ground?
Tulip bulb has a top that we want to make sure that that's up.
Okay.
And the roots on the bottom. We recently planted in the springtime. Fall is because the roots are growing during the wintertime to grow. Okay, we want to plant them. Here we had dug a hole. We're planting a multiple group of tulips so that we'll have a nice cluster in our landscape. It just won't be one individual planted in a row.
Now, how
So
deep do we need to plant those?
you want them about 5 inches deep
5 inches,
when
okay.
you plant them.
Okay.
Okay, and once you have planted the tulips, you want to make sure that you cover the soil back over and make sure that you water it well.
Okay. So we don't have to add, any
You don't have to add any
fertilizers or
nutrients.
anything?
Most of our tulips or bulbs are not heavy feeders.
Okay.
So if you haven't done a soil test, then you can do that. Make
Sure.
sure where your nutrient level is.
Okay. All right. So next you demonstrate using the drill?
Yes, we
Okay.
can use the drill. And what that does is just augers down into the soil, makes a nice hole for you, and it comes out. And then you have a nice hole to plant your daffodil bulb in this right depth. And
Okay.
just cover it over. So it makes it real easy to plant.
Okay. Now, how deep was that? Just in case
That was
somebody
about 5
wants to know.
inches
That was 5
deep.
inches deep.
5 inches deep.
Gotcha.
So that's the way you would plant them in the fall, but it makes it a lot easier if the soil is tilled up.
Sure.
With this type of planter, you can plant in soil that has not been tilled.
Okay.
You can go down in your yard in a hard bed. So if you're wanting to naturalize a lot of bulbs, then this would be the tool that you'd want to
Okay.
use.
Okay. All right. So if you just want to use a plain old trowel, though,
You want to take a tiller or shovel and loosen it up.
just
before you
loosen up.
plant.
we still want to loosen up, right? So we can
Right,
get the
you
bulbs
want
in
the
there.
soil loose, because this will not cut through hard
Yeah.
soil unless the bed's been loosened up.
Okay. And you just demonstrate that for us, though, just using that since we have it
If
tilled
the
up.
soil is loose, then what you want to do is twist and turn. It'll pull all the soil
I
out.
got you, right.
And then you have a nice hole to put it in. And this is about 5 inches deep, so
Right.
that's what you want to plant it. Then you just knock your soil back out.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that being pretty tough if the ground is not
Yeah,
tilled.
if the ground's not loose, then this is really a hard tool to use.
Okay.
All right.
Now, can you explain to us about actually storing those bulbs, though? What's the best way to do that?
Right, you may be purchasing the bulbs earlier
Sure.
than 1st of November. So you want to put the bulbs in some type of refrigeration, about like your refrigerator, 38 to 50 degrees, to keep them cool for about 8 weeks before you plant the tulips. Make sure that you don't have any type of fruit in there, because the ethylene gas
Right.
will kill the flower bud in the tulip bulbs
Okay.
on that.
All right. So once you do that, then
You're good
pull
to
them
go.
out and you're good to go.
Pull
Everything
them
is fine?
out and good to go, and soil's cool, plant them and forget about them.
Okay. So the bulbs have to have some type of chilling
They
requirement.
have to have
right?
chilling requirements
Okay.
to be able to bloom properly.
All right.
If you don't do that and then we have a warm winter, then they don't bloom well.
Okay. Well, Lee, we appreciate that demonstration with the bulbs.
Glad to do it.
Thank you much.
While inspecting the blackberries one last time, I found something that kind of caught me a little bit by surprise, but it shouldn't have. A very opportunistic pest, a bagworm. This is how bagworms overwinter. The female will attach this bag to, normally it's a branch of a tree that they're going to feed on. But if you happen to run across a bagworm like this, especially if it's on a plant that you've had problems with bagworms before, remove it, take it off, because that female has filled this bag with eggs. That is how they overwinter. They overwinter as eggs in a bag. So this needs to be destroyed. I don't mean you don't need to throw it down, because it can overwinter. This is a very tough cocoon, and it can overwinter on the ground. You need to burn it, or you need to put it in a grocery bag, a Walmart bag, triple tie it, and put it in the garbage and get rid of it.
All right, Mr. D, here's our Q&A segment. We have some great questions here.
Yes, we do.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here's our first via email. My peaches get about the size of a golf ball and never get any bigger or ripen. They only stay hard. Why do my peaches stay small and hard and never ripen? This is Bill on YouTube. We know you like to talk about peaches.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But they stay small.
One
They
of my favorite
never
subjects, yeah.
ripen.
I wish Bill had sent us some pictures.
It would have been nice, yeah.
Because there's several things that can cause that. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is a peach tree will put on 80 to 90% more fruit than it needs to.
Okay.
And if you don't thin those
I knew you were
peaches,
gonna say it.
if you don't thin those peaches and you leave all of the fruit on there, that's what's going to happen, because they'll stay small, they won't ripen, and that's what's going to happen. So if you've done everything right, and you've taken care of the tree and you've done everything right except thin it, that's the problem that you'll have.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Another thing that can cause that is if you haven't done everything right and you've had problems and you've had maybe borers that get into a tree and it's died back and it's come back from the rootstock, and you have rootstock that's grown up and become a tree, that can be what that fruit's supposed to look like on that rootstock.
So I knew you were going to mention those. I know you will.
And one of the best ways to thin a crop without pulling a peach off is pruning. When you prune and you take a lot of that out, you are actually doing some thinning. But then after you do that, before that fruit gets, before the pit hardens, so before the fruit gets much bigger than a quarter size, you need to have thinned them out. If you wait and thin them after the pit hardens, it's too late.
Yeah.
The fruit's still going to be small and hard. So,
all right. I knew it.
I wish we had pictures.
Yeah.
I wish we had pictures, Bill. Send us some and let us know. Give us some feedback on that. Let us know which one of those you think it might be now.
All right. That's good, Mr. D. Yeah, I knew you were going to mention those things. How about that? So there you have it, Mr. Bill. Here's our next via email. I have a Honeycrisp apple tree that has fire blight. Should I cut the tree down to the main stem? Most of the tree is diseased. Thank you, Natalie from YouTube. So yeah, we're talking about an apple tree that has fire blight, but does it need to be cut down to the main stem? And again, it would have been nice, to have a picture.
Right, right. Yeah. I would probably not this year. I would probably make sure I would go in there in the late winter and I'd try to prune out all the as much of the diseased wood as you can, and just to prune it pretty hard, and then I would after I get through doing that, I'd dip my pruning shears in a mixture of Clorox and water to before I go to another tree that's not infected, and then I would use the streptomycin or AgriStrep during bloom. I would do that. I've had really, really good luck with that, and I know some folks haven't, but I personally have had really, really good luck using the streptomycin for fire blight control, and I have some apples and one pear that is very, very susceptible to that disease, and but I'd give that a try.
I would
one more year,
yeah,
because Honeycrisp, that's a good apple.
It's a great apple.
Good eating apple.
It's a great apple.
And I would also, if you're not doing it already, I would make sure I follow a regular spray schedule on that, because insects like them too. Yeah,
Right.
got a lot of sugar in it. So.
Yeah, pretty much my suggestions as well. I would prune it out, you know, the disease.
Try, give that a
limbs
try, and
first
then
see
if
what
that
happens.
fails, if it
Right.
doesn't work and it's completely, you know, overrun with fire blight next year, then you might want to consider replacing it with a variety that has some resistance to
Resistant
fire blight.
variety.
Yeah.
Great. There you have it. Natalie, thank you for the question. Here's our next via email. How do I know when quince apples are ready to be picked? It's Jenny on YouTube. Have you had a quince apple before?
I have not.
You have not?
I have seen quince. I've seen the trees and kind of familiar with them a little bit, but I have not eaten one of the apples. And after doing a little bit of research, I guess I understood why. You know, most. Oh, by the way, you can tell when they're ready to be picked when they're bright golden yellow.
Yes.
They'll be really bright golden
Yes,
yellow.
seen that.
That's when they're ready
That's
to
when
be.
they're ready.
That's when they're mature. It's when they're ready to be picked. But I think you might want to look at some of the recipes and put them, you know, cooked and jellies and jams and stuff like that might be a little bit better than trying to eat one fresh off the tree, because I don't think they taste quite as good as a regular apple.
But when they do turn that bright yellow color, you can smell them too. They
Yeah.
have a nice sweet fragrance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when you know they're ready
But
to go.
have you eaten them?
Oh yeah.
You
We
like
try-
them?
Not so much. Yeah.
Yeah,
not
I
so
guess
much.
it depends
We
if you're how
tried it,
hungry
you
you
know,
are.
just
Yeah,
to see. But yeah, you're exactly right. Bright yellow, and they're easy to, you know, of course, they just pop right off the limb itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's not an apple or peach, but you know,
Yeah. It's
All right.
a fruit.
it's a fruit.
It is good for you. It's high in vitamin C, and
yeah.
you know, it's you know, let's see, what does it say? Vitamin C, fiber, antioxidants, calcium, iron, potassium, magnesium, and
it's
copper.
definitely good,
So
then.
it's good for you.
It's definitely good.
Yep.
All right, Jenny. There you have it. We thank you for that question. Mr. D, that was fun. Thank you much.
Yep.
Thank you much. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us. If you want to learn more about growing, pruning, or caring for apples, head on over to familyplotgarden.com. While you're there, ask us your gardening question. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.